Monday, February the 7th. We're going to call to order a council meeting of Town Council of Orangeville. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Could we have a motion to move into closed, please? Councillors Andrew and Deputy Mayor McIntosh, all in favor?
Yes.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'll just quickly indicate what the matters are for, just for the public.
Yes.
Okay, so, and Councillor Taylor, sorry, I did just send you a message, but I see that you're here. So the matters for closed session are with respect to a bylaw enforcement matter, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, vaccination policy, public office holders, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. A matter with respect to public office holders, it's personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Verbal report from Ray Osmond, General Manager, Community Services, Contract Warming Center, a position plan procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. And then finally, we have a fifth matter with it's a verbal confidential report from Ed Brennan, CAO, regarding the Pullen Well. And this is with respect to a position plan procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on or behalf of the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we're going to sign off and join the closed session. We'll see you in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting for Monday, February the 7th, 2022. Earlier this evening, we had a closed council session, so we're going to pick this up at item 5, which is the singing of our national anthem. Ms. Portman-Cherry.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, David Nairn, Artistic Director of Theatre Orangeville. Yes, the words glorious and free have certainly been thrown around quite a bit the last couple of weeks. And this is a great country, and we are glorious and free. I'm going to read our land acknowledgement. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and/or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Earlier tonight, as I'd stated a few minutes ago, we did have a closed session of council, and we are going to rise and report as follows. That bylaw enforcement matter regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, be received. And that vaccination policy, public office holders regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, be received. And the public office holders, just a sec, I scrolled too fast there. And that public office holders regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, be received. And that a verbal report from Raymond Osmond, General Manager of Community Services, regarding contract and warming center, regarding a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, be received. And that a verbal report from Ed Brennan, CAO, regarding the Pullen Well, regarding a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, be received, and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a motion for that, please? Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Sherwood. Any further comments? All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. So tonight we have a public meeting and a statutory public meeting. Per our procedural bylaw, we're going to turn this meeting now over to Deputy Mayor Andy McIntosh. Deputy Mayor, all over to you, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll now outline the procedure that's going to be followed. As the Mayor mentioned, we're meeting on a property standards bylaw proposed amendments. So the procedure that will be followed, anyone who would like to speak to this matter can call 1-289-801-5774 and enter the conference ID number 776-646-665 #. Callers will be invited to provide their questions or comments following the conclusion of this presentation. Anyone who wants to be notified of further consideration of this topic may submit their name, phone number, mailing address, and email address to Clerk's Department at orangeville.ca or call 519-941-0440, extension 2268, and reference Property Standards Bylaw Proposed Amendment. Any information collected will be a matter of public record. So we now have a presentation by Carrie Cunningham, our Bylaw and Property Standards Officer. Carrie?
Thank you. Just bear with me while I get this up on the screen here. Can everyone see that? Okay. Good evening, Deputy Mayor McIntosh, Mayor Brown, members of council, and members of the public. Tonight's meeting will provide an overview of the proposed amendments to the Property Standards Bylaw, and at the end of the presentation, the public will have an opportunity to provide comments or ask questions. In 2021,
Excuse me, Carrie.
Yes.
Carrie, I can't see the presentation. Does everybody else see it okay?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
You've all
Yeah.
got it?
Yep.
It's at my
Everybody's
end. Okay, sorry.
okay.
I'll follow along. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In 2021, as part of the regulatory bylaw work plan adopted by council, staff were directed to review and update the property standards bylaw. On January 24th, 2022, staff presented a report and draft bylaw to council. Tonight, a public meeting is being held to obtain feedback on the proposed bylaw. Then on February 28th, staff will report back to council in relation to the feedback received for council's consideration. The current property standards bylaw was passed in 2002 and to date has not been amended. The updates that are being proposed would incorporate legislative changes that have occurred since the passing of the current bylaw and expand on the current standards in response to complaints, as well provide more clarity to definitions and provisions. The proposed updates include: under definitions, the proposed bylaw includes additional definitions in order to provide more clarity and strengthen existing wording. As well, updates have been incorporated to provide consistency with other town bylaws. Open space town lands. The proposed bylaw would exempt town lands that are designated as naturalized areas from the yard maintenance requirements section, specifically relating to long grass, brush, undergrowth, and weeds exceeding 15 centimeters in height. Maintenance of hedges and bushes. The proposed bylaw would require shrubbery to be kept trimmed, not exhibited an unsightly appearance, and as a condition of a site plan development, would be required to be kept in good repair and living condition. Maintenance of yards. The proposed bylaw expands on the current maintenance requirements to include additional provisions that would require a yard to be kept clean and free from animal excrement, stagnant water, and firewood, unless the firewood is stored in neat piles. Swimming pools. The proposed bylaw provides more clarity by including a clause specific to swimming pools and requiring that they be maintained in good repair. Surface conditions of yards. The proposed bylaw expands on the existing maintenance provisions by requiring that stormwater runoff, sump pump discharge, and swimming pool water be contained within the limits of the property from which it originates until it's drained to a swale or storm sewer. Roof. The proposed bylaw includes an additional requirement that a roof is to also be maintained free from dangerous accumulations of snow and ice. Compost. The proposed bylaw does not include the current detailed construction methods of a composter that's contained in the current bylaw. A requirement, however, has been added prohibiting composters from being stored in a front yard. Multi-residential buildings. The proposed bylaw includes a requirement that any security locking and release system installed in a lobby entrance that is controlled from the dwelling unit is to be maintained in good repair. Exterior lighting. The proposed bylaw requires exterior lighting fixtures to be maintained at an entrance to a dwelling and maintained in a manner that does not shine directly into the window of an abutting dwelling. And appliances. The proposed bylaw includes a requirement that cooking and refrigeration appliances are to be maintained in good repair. Heating. The proposed bylaw prohibits the use of portable heating equipment as the primary source of heat in a rental dwelling. And heritage properties, which isn't included in the current bylaw, it contains provisions including definitions of a heritage property and heritage attribute. The bylaw sets out requirements for repairs of heritage attributes to be conducted in a manner that will protect, maintain, and stabilize the attribute. Such repairs would be completed in accordance with a heritage permit issued by the town. This concludes tonight's presentation. Should members of council or the public have any comments or questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Is there any member of the public that has a question before we get to council? Hearing none, we'll go to Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Ms. Cunningham, it's always a pleasure to have you join us at council, and thank you for your presentation on some of these amendments. A lot of information to review, and I do have a question. This is pertaining to the property standards violations that may occur. And again, not expressing any naivety, but at the same time, I think since this is a public opportunity for the general public to be aware of some things, if there is in fact a violation, what is the property owner required to do? And if, depending on the violation, is there a process that those individuals work with the bylaw department? As an example, I was looking at page 16 and page 32 and 33 of your report in specific subsections in 36.2 to 36.4. When there are violations, is the property owner responsible to do the repairs themselves, or as is indicated, that the town also ends up indicating specific processes? So I'd just like to hear maybe a Coles Notes version of that process.
Sure. So through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Andrews, the process basically, when a complaint is submitted to the bylaw department, officers investigate a complaint. Typically, we work with property owners to obtain a voluntary compliance, and working with them includes education. We've just implemented a new process where we're using door hangers now to notify residents that we've been to a property and advising them of the violations that have been noted. Failing that, we typically give 48 hours for a resident to get back to us, to ask questions or to let us know if compliance has been achieved. If that hasn't been completed in the 48 hours, next, we would issue an order. Property standards orders issued. A time frame for compliance is a minimum 14 days if an order is served personally. Other methods of service that would be served at 19 days compliance. So typically we work with the property owners during that time frame while they are, working towards compliance with the bylaw.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I have submitted some comments as well to the Clerk's Department and bylaw. My general comments surround more of the lawn area and some of the prescriptive nature of the bylaw. I understand there needs to be some sort of a line that's drawn. No one wants an unsightly neighborhood, but by the same token, the prized lawn of yesteryear, I think we all have come to understand, is not necessarily the best course for the environment. And with a growing community of gardeners and naturalist tendencies and naturalization of spaces, I think some of the language in here perhaps is overly prescriptive and does not allow for, some of those more forward-thinking decisions to be made with respect to lawn maintenance and composting and gardening and that kind of thing. So again, I've submitted some comments. I'm sure they'll come back as part of the staff report, but just wanted to voice those while I had the ear of council.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from councilors? Mayor Brown.
Just following up on Councillor Peters, Carrie, if there was a particular situation with a property owner, is there possibility of somebody asking for a minor variance to allow some, unusual circumstances that might present? Is that a path that somebody could take if they wanted to, challenge some of the wording here?
Well, typically, the minor variance process is with respect to zoning bylaw requirements. So I'm not sure. Yeah, with the property standards bylaw, that wouldn't be applicable, the minor variance. Possibly the clerk could expand on that a little bit.
Hello, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor and Deputy Mayor. I can,
Just one more
if I can just
Aaron,
expand. Go ahead.
I think what Councillor Peters is saying maybe is beauty's in the eye of the beholder in some cases. So anyway, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Certainly. Just to expand, Carrie is correct. The variance procedure would not apply in this case. There is no provision within the Building Code Act to allow for a variance process for property standards matters. However, I think it is important to note that when an officer is investigating at a property, consideration is given to what the surrounding area looks like. And that's why this is always, I guess, in the past, like the provisions have been included in the Building Code Act for quite some time, and they are minimum maintenance standards. And the idea is to take into consideration the surrounding environment at the time of the investigation.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from council or the public? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Cunningham. We'll move on to the statutory public meeting for 33 to 37 Broadway. The procedure that will be followed, much the same as the first one. Anyone who would like to speak to this matter, to call 1-289-801-5774 and enter conference ID number 776-646-665 #. Callers will be invited to provide a question or comments following the conclusion of this meeting presentation. Anyone who wants to be notified for further consideration of this topic, submit their name, phone number, mailing address, and email address to planning@orangeville.ca or call 519-941-0440, extension 2254. Reference the file number RZ-2021-02. Note that any information collected will be a matter of public record. So first off, we have a presentation by the Town Planning Division staff. Ms. Laura Russell, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McIntosh. I'll just share my screen. Is everybody seeing that okay?
Yes.
Yep. Perfect. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, and those in attendance. Tonight's public meeting is being held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to share information about the application with council and members of the public, to obtain any comments and answer any questions. A recommendation or decision on the application will not be made tonight. An information report has also been included on this evening's agenda and provides more detail about the applications. The applicant and agent are in attendance and will be providing more details as part of their presentation. They will also be available to answer any specific questions raised by both council and members of the community. The zoning bylaw amendment application was filed by Weston Consulting on behalf of Elite Development Group on August 10th, 2021, and deemed complete by the town on August 19th, 2021. The application is proposing the development of a 9-story mixed-use building containing 97 dwelling units and 407 square meters of commercial uses on the ground floor. The subject land is located on the north side of Broadway between Sherbourne Street and 4th Street and is municipally known as 33 to 37 Broadway. It has a total area of approximately 0.8 hectares, approximately 61 meters of frontage along Broadway, and 35 meters of frontage along Sherbourne Street. The property is currently developed with 3 one-story commercial buildings. The 2 buildings closer to the Broadway frontage are proposed to be demolished to make way for the new development, while the medical building in the rear is proposed to be maintained. The property is surrounded by a mix of residential and commercial uses. The residential uses are predominantly 2- and 3-story townhouses, and multi-residential buildings range from 3 to 6 stories in height. As mentioned, the proposed development consists of a 9-story building fronting onto Broadway. This includes 97 residential units and 407 square meters of ground floor retail space. 253 parking stalls are proposed to service the development as a whole, including the existing medical center that will be maintained on the site. A rooftop amenity is proposed on the 4-story portion of the building. Vehicular access will be provided via the existing entrances from Broadway and Sherbourne. The applicant is going to provide further details on the proposal as part of their presentation. The subject lands are designated neighborhood commercial in the Orangeville official plan, which permits a range of commercial uses as listed on the slide. Residential uses are also permitted on upper floors. An official plan amendment is not required to facilitate the proposed development. Similar to the official plan, the subject property is zoned neighborhood commercial in Orangeville's zoning bylaw, which also permits a range of commercial uses and residential uses on upper floors. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to provide site-specific standards in order to permit the development as proposed. These site specifics include a reduction in the side yard setback from 5 meters to 4.5 meters, an increase in the exterior side yard setback from Sherbourne from 22.5 meters to 66.1 meters, and an increase in height from 12 meters to 29.1 meters. The application was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for comment. Comments from building, fire, as well as utilities and school boards have expressed no concerns with the proposal. We have received detailed comments from the internal departments and external agencies noted on the slide. The Environment Division has expressed that the hydrogeological report will be required to be revised. Planning has noted minor revisions to the draft amendment are required, as well as a peer review of the urban design and visual study will be required. Transportation and Development will be requiring a peer review of the transportation study. The Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee has asked the developer to consider locating some of the accessible parking spaces closer to the proposed commercial area along the Broadway frontage. And the Orangeville Business Improvement Area has requested that some of the outdoor parking spaces be made available for public use. Town staff have received several comment letters and verbal comments from the public expressing their concerns with the proposed development. These comments are summarized as follows. High density and the height, density, and visual appearance. There's been concerns with the proposed height of the building, that it contains too many units, is too dense. Some of the comments suggested that a 6-story building, similar to the one behind the proposed development, would fit better within the neighborhood. There's also concerns with the modern design in terms of a gateway feature into the Orangeville downtown core. There's also been concerns with the amount of parking in terms of the appearance. Traffic is also a concern in terms of increased traffic in an already busy area. Parking, there's been concerns raised with lack of parking currently and it causing spillover onto adjacent properties. There's also some concerns with the commercial uses regarding increased commercial space, as well as the removal of the established commercial uses on the property. Since preparing this presentation, we've also received concerns regarding existing flooding in the area. Today, we held a statutory public meeting. In terms of next steps, the Planning Division will await a revised submission from the applicant for review and comment. In the future, we'll prepare a recommendation report for a council decision. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Larissa. I will now have a presentation by Kaylee Robbins from Weston Consulting. Kaylee?
Hello, good afternoon. I just want to make sure you can hear me, no problem.
We can hear.
Perfect, so I will share my screen. Perfect, and everyone can see that just fine.
Looks good.
Perfect. So good evening, Mayor, members of council, staff, and the public. My name is Kaylee Robbins. I am a senior planner at Weston Consulting, and I'm here on behalf of the numbered company 2131997 Ontario Inc., also known as Elite Developments. Here with me tonight is Ibti Safi, project manager at Elite Developments, as well as Martin Corcapone, a senior associate at Weston Consulting, Edward Thomas, architect at SRM Architects, and Marco Drisic, project manager from Brooklyn Contracting. So I just want to start off by saying thanks for joining tonight. And just to note that nothing presented here is final, and the purpose of this meeting is to gather information from members of council and the public to bring this forward in the future for a recommendation report to council. So some of this will be quite similar to Larissa's presentation, so I will try to go through that quite quickly so it's not too repetitive. I believe now you might be familiar with the property. It's on Broadway, 33 to 37 Broadway, between Sherbourne and 4th Street. And as Larissa said, it's about 0.8 hectares with frontage on Broadway and Sherbourne Street, with about 35 meters of frontage on Sherbourne Street. And I will just note here that there are, I believe you can see my mouse, I apologize if you cannot, but there are 3 existing commercial buildings on the property. The medical building, that's a plaza with a few medical uses that my mouse is pointing to, and I hope you can see it. It's the one in the most northern area of the site that is actually proposed to be retained with the proposed development. The other 2 will be demolished to facilitate the proposed development. And I will also note that this entrance here on Sherbourne will be maintained for the proposed development, as well as this entrance on Broadway, whereas this more western entrance will have to be eliminated. So again, this is the site context. I won't go into too much detail as Larissa did, but you have Highway 10 here, Broadway here, and as you can see, some of these areas are a bit more of an established neighborhood here, and then you also have the open space and park uses here. I believe this is Rotary Park, and then commercial uses on Broadway, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. And I will just note that just north of the property is 2 to 3 story townhouses, with some being single detached dwellings, as well as a 6-story residential building just where my mouse is there. So here's the proposed development. So as you can see, the proposals for a 9-story mixed-use building with 97 residential units, comprised of 1-bedroom units, 1-bedroom plus den, and 2-bedroom units. We also have commercial use at grade. So you'll see here with the yellow coloring, these are 5 proposed commercial units along Broadway, very close to the frontage, to help activate the street and be more similar to a downtown feel. You'll see here with the pink areas, actually the residential uses at grade. So that includes the mailroom, the property management office, lockers and bike storage. And then this purple area is the amenity area for the residential uses. And then the white is all parking and access. And then again, you have this, the medical building, medical commercial building here that will be retained. So then I'll just get into a bit of the planning framework. So because the town of Orangeville is a lower tier municipality, the upper tier municipality, being the county of Dufferin, has an official plan that governs how development occurs within the entire county. And with that, they've designated these lands and surrounding lands, as you can see with the blue coloring, urban settlement area, which is where development and growth is to occur, with intensification development specifically within the built boundary, which is outlined with this blue dashed line. So therefore, with that, we think the proposed development aligns well with the County of Dufferin official plan, being that it's demonstrating intensification within the built boundary of the town of Orangeville. So Larissa did touch on this slightly, but the town of Orangeville official plan designates the subject lands as neighborhood commercial, and this designation permits predominantly commercial uses, but does allow for residential units on the upper stories of a commercial building, as you can see with the proposed development. The official plan does not include maximum or minimum densities, and it supports the achievement of providing a range of dwelling types and densities, which we took into consideration when proposing the residential commercial building. So here is the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The lands are currently zoned neighborhood commercial, and we do not wish to change that zone. However, we will require special exceptions to that zone, which I've highlighted in red here on this slide. So we will require, as the proposal is currently, an increase to the maximum front yard, which we've identified as Sherburne Street, to 66.1 meters. We'd also require a decreased interior side yard to 4.5, and that's recognizing that existing commercial dwelling. We'd also require an increase in the maximum building height from 12 meters to 29.1 meters, as well as a recognition of the total unit count. This isn't a provision in the zoning bylaw, but it's from our experience or from our review of the zoning bylaw, typical practice to recognize that through the zoning bylaw amendment process. So here's another view of the proposed development. So you'll see, unfortunately, you can't see the commercial plaza here, but behind this building is the commercial plaza that we wish to retain. And then just along the frontage here on Broadway is where the commercial units will be placed. And we've included, SRM architects have included a dark gray paneled feature here to articulate that commercial area and to, I guess, define that space within this building. We've also included paneling and glazing where the podium parking is going. Stories 2 to 4 includes podium parking as opposed to underground parking, for example. So we've tried to use architectural features to detract from the parking while also maintaining some good quality design. And you'll see on the 5th and 6th stories, we have Juliet balconies for the residential units. And then we have the inset balconies on stories 7 to 9. And then here would be the entrance to the site. And then here you have a different view of the proposed building from the north. So again, we've used the paneling to disguise the podium parking, which again are on the first floor here, where you can see the entrance into the building, and then on stories 2 to 4. And then the outdoor amenity space is proposed on the top of the 4th floor, so on the 5th floor, accessed from an interior amenity area. And then again, we have the Juliet balconies on the 5th and 6th floor, and inset balconies on the 7th to 9th floor. And you see that we've tried to essentially limit visibility of the parking entrance from Broadway, and that's in the rear of the site near the existing commercial building. And then here where my mouse is where the waste management and garbage facilities will be located, but will be guarded with fences to limit visibility of those items. So I just want to take a minute to talk about the height and density of the proposed units. So we do propose 97 units, and this is to provide a range of dwelling types in the areas and densities. The area is predominantly of lower to medium density, and this provides a new housing type while also meeting the needs of more people, and will also support greater affordability by increasing supply and proposing more compact dwelling types. And although the height is greater than buildings in the area, we feel that it allows for a transition from this building to the adjacent 6-story building, which then transitions to 3- and 2-story buildings. And I would also just like to take a note that the podium parking was influenced by the high groundwater table in the area. So that's why you see this type of development with the parking being accommodated within the first few stories of the building. There's my mouse. Okay. So this here just presents the information that we've prepared in support of the zoning bylaw amendment. So you'll see that we've undertaken various studies to support this proposal, and we look forward to comments from the public, staff, and members of council to see how we can review these materials further, update them as needed, to work with everyone to keep this moving forward. But I just wanted to present this so that if you have not seen these materials, I'm sure that they're available to you or can be in the future if needed. So that concludes my presentation. I am sorry that it was quite repetitive, but I just wanted to let you know that where we are now is to collect feedback from everyone here tonight and the public over the next few weeks if you weren't able to attend tonight. So this is key in moving this project forward. We understand that we'll receive comments tonight, and we've already received some comments from the town, which will require, I guess, a revised submission. So we hope to have, all the comments to address them all comprehensively, and then we will submit to the town at the right time, which, as Larissa said, will then go to a council meeting with the recommendation report. But yeah, I just would like to reiterate that the proposed development presented to you tonight is not final. Rather, we hope to receive comments to see how we can ensure that this is something the town, council, and the public can be proud of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Robbins. Council, if we could just hold off questions till everybody's presented, please. We now have a delegation by a Ms. Bayham. Are you there, Ms. Bayham?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Last September, 43 of us signed a letter which voiced our concerns regarding tonight's zoning bylaw amendment and the 9-story development proposal. All of you should have been made aware of this letter by now. However, I would like to repeat. Please do not change this bylaw. It would be a mistake. We have now been informed of yet another similar application, this time only 7-story building, where the Top Mechanic Auto Body Shop is located. Change is not always for the better, and everything does not have to be about money. These future plans affect the people of Orangeville, and our voices matter. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Bayham. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, your name and address, please.
Yes, hello, good evening. This is Martina Rowley. I'm a resident in Orangeville at 56 Chisholm Street.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and members of Council. I just wanted to point out that the town has, in recent years, spent a significant amount of money and a lot of public consultation on a sustainability plan, as well as recently a tourism plan, and both of which I feel are based very strongly on the small town feel that Orangeville has, and which so many of the local residents are here for and moved here for specifically. I'd like to know what Council will do to keep these plans in mind and to include in your deliberations how you plan to protect Orangeville's small town feel in light of this existing application for a multi-purpose building that isn't really in line with the town's usual building heights, and also based on the design, which is very urban and sleek and shiny and glassy, and also conflicts with the more Victorian and historic building style that we have in our small town. I'd like to know from Council what you will be including in your deliberations to make sure that you keep that in mind for the residents of our town. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Rowley. I'm sure we will consider everything. Again, no decisions will be made tonight, so we'll probably be more than one meeting before we decide what we're going to do with this, whether to accept this. So just hold on. We will certainly be discussing all items. Is there anybody else in the public that has a question? Last call for anyone else in the public? Okay, we'll now get to Council. I have a quick question. Just to confirm, we're looking at 255 parking spots and 97 residential units. That's what I got off that. And a quick question, second question, are these condos or apartments? I didn't see that. I might have missed it.
Hi, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for your question. I will just confirm the parking's 253. So that includes 72 for the commercial units and then 157 for the residential. So that's just above 2 parking spots per unit. So that includes visitor parking as well. And then at this time, rental is contemplated for the tenure of the units.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Brown, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. More a comment. I mean, I look at the design and I don't want to, besmirch the architect who's on board here, but this does not look like a fitting design for this particular part of Orangeville, or maybe Orangeville period. I've talked to a number of developers over the past 3 years, and I've always talked about texture of the design of, this looks like big city urban to me, and not, the welcoming entry to our town. So that's my first comment. The height, this is in an area of 3 to 5 or 6 story buildings behind it. You're going to be blocking the view from those buildings behind it. So I would say from the outset, I'm not in favor of that high of a building. I'm not opposed to apartment buildings. I think they're a reasonable type of residential unit to be considering, and the intensification is going to happen in our town. I would hope not to this height in this particular area of town. I did see in the notes that there is going to be an urban design and visual impact study, and I think having the building fit within the streetscape and be, as I said, I'm in favor of more texture to a building, rather than it being sort of maximizing the footprint of the building. And I know that speaks against the capitalist nature of developing, that you want to try and maximize the number of units. But we're a small town still. We like our heritage features. We like our design to be, I think, a little more muted than this one. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. I could be wrong here, but Councillor Andrews, were you next?
No, it's Councillor Taylor.
I knew I'd get it wrong. Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Councillor Andrews is the most honest councillor on the team. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, I guess I wanted to just offer an explanation to the public first, and then if I could ask a question of Ms. Russell. And my explanation to the public is I don't think that the public truly understands how these things come to council. And the first time I read about this development, it was in the banner. I didn't hear about it in any other way. And this is the first meeting that we've had. It typically comes to a planning session in this fashion, and this is our opportunity as council to question and understand what's happening. And I guess to me, I too have heard rumors of other condo buildings along Broadway. I have not seen any pictures or descriptions. And I too have heard of the garage on the, I think your south side of Broadway, I guess it'd be across from Greystones, as being another development. And to me, if we're going to do these types of things, I guess I'm concerned overall about how it's all going to play. That's our feature area as you come into town. You'll go up the highway, you'll turn left, and you'll come into our beloved business district of downtown. And I just think it's really important with the overall look. And so I guess my question to you, Ms. Russell, is what is the plan? What are the other things that are happening in this area? And I know, the mayor mentioned the urban design peer review. I wrote that down as my notes as well. I'd like to understand how this would all look with the heights and potentially the buildings. Like I've heard rumors of 2 others. So there potentially could be 4 condo buildings down here. And this is hyperbole on my part. I don't know because it hasn't come to council, but I'm just curious what the overall look as we drive into our lovely downtown is going to look like as time moves forward.
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor, if I may answer a portion of that question, perhaps. So yes, we do have this application in for consideration, and we have received another one. We just put out a notice of complete application for 48 to 52 Broadway, following the process, as you mentioned, a notice of complete, and then we'll be coming back with a public meeting. The visual impact study submitted by the applicant for this proposal will be sent out to peer review to seek some more direction from some experts in terms of urban design for staff consideration and feedback, and will be brought back to council as part of the recommendation report. In terms of the vision for this overall area, it's something we'll be looking at as part of our phase 2 of the official plan. We're looking to perhaps develop some more policies there, or look at how we may intensify this portion of Broadway, understanding that a lot of the development may be coming towards this portion of town. I don't know if Mr. Ward would like to offer anything else.
No, I don't have anything further to add. Ms. Russell did a good job of answering that question. It's going to be something we're looking at as we go forward. As council will likely hear in the coming months, there's information that the county is working on with respect to their comprehensive review to conform with the growth plan, and you'll see some direction there as what Orangeville will need to start thinking about in terms of how we're going to accommodate our growth long term, and what that means in terms of intensification and appropriate densities and such. Certainly some new activity happening in this segment of Broadway. It's perhaps opportunity to look at things both holistically and individually. And it's, as Ms. Russell noted, this is why we want to look at these very carefully from a design and compatibility standpoint going forward.
If I may, Deputy Mayor, just through you to Mr. Ward, how many buildings do you think we'll have down in that area? And I know it's an unfair question at this point, but would there be 5 or 6, or is there 2 or 3? What do you think potentially we're looking at?
To Chair, to Councillor Taylor, it's sort of difficult to speculate as to how many buildings might happen there for the long term. What I can say is it is something we would look at as part of our second phase of the official plan to perhaps look at more of a strategic policy framework, looking at intensification areas and perhaps even strategic intensification areas for that matter. In terms of this area, the applications we have in front of us are basically this one this evening. The development that was approved not too long ago from a land use state at the corner of Broadway and Wellington, that's 60 to 62 Broadway, across from Greystones. That's another mixed-use development intensification project that received land use approvals. And the third one that's being referenced very recently came in. It is at the Top Technicians site on the south side of Broadway. That is for a 7-story mixed-use development. So lots of activity of interest here. Certainly some interest in introducing more intensification. Certainly those intensification initiatives align well with the provincial policy framework, but it's something we of course want to take a look at from a compatibility standpoint.
Okay, Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McIntosh. I have a comment and also a question for our delegation. Similar wavelength to Councillor Taylor regarding the intensification, taking a look at some of the developments that have, of course, popped up, at least in discussion. And I think that what's important, I recall pre-pandemic, we had Roger Brooks, who came into Orangeville to provide somewhat of an overview of our community and accurate observations where I know that, some of the business leaders and the BIA and our tourism and of course the Business and Economic Development Office have been very clear about trying to implement. And again, we know about the tourism tagline that we've now introduced. This is kind of our calling card. This entrance area is our calling card, and we have to have some, not to say form of uniformity. And Mr. Ward, I'm pleased to hear that, we're looking at the strategic plan, somewhat of a version number 2, where, the idea of a holistic, but also maybe an organic approach to the design, some uniformity or some continuity to the design moving forward. I think the point is that, we had members of the public who also expressed some concerns, and I appreciate those that have stepped forward and done so. To our delegation, Ms. Robbins, I wanted just to express, I know that there are other members of council who are close to heart, always aware of the affordable housing concerns that are literally across this province, and we've taken to heart, of course, those issues here locally. Of the number of units that are proposed in this particular submission, how many would be, you've indicated 97, but how many would be 1-bedroom specifically, 1-bedroom den, 2 bedrooms at this time? I know it may be premature because, modifications may be part of this, but, off the top of your head, would you be able to provide that clarification? And if they were rental or were they condo, what would be the price point? And I know it's, kind of a crystal ball comment, but I'd like to just get an understanding of it.
Well, thank you for your question, Councillor Andrews, and through you, Deputy Mayor. I would just like to address, there have been a few comments, and thank you for those regarding the design of the building. And I would just like to say first that we have spoken to the project team and Elite Developments, and we are willing and interested in altering the design so that it fits with the comments that we've received. So there is flexibility in that, and I just wanted to let council and the public know that the design you've seen is not final, and we as a project team will go back to the drawing board to see how we can address those comments we've received. So your question, Councillor Andrews, regarding the unit composition, and do you have that in front of me? So we will have 30 one-bedroom units, 43 one-bedroom plus den, and then 24 two-bedroom units. So, and to your tenure question, it is to be rental, or it's contemplated right now to be rental. And from an affordability perspective, I personally cannot say what the rental fee will be, unfortunately, but that is something that I can discuss with Elite Developments and get back to you on. Obviously, it's subject to change through the years, but we can always work to get those numbers to you, albeit preliminary, if anything.
I understand, and I thank you very much for your comments. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. I have a couple of comments and then a question for Ms. Robbins. First of all, the architectural design of the building would look beautiful in downtown Vancouver, but not downtown Orangeville. Sorry, I'm very concerned with the aesthetic look of it going into our heritage downtown. I want to allude you to the fact that we worked very well with the architect that gave us the proposal for the development at the corner of Wellington and Broadway, where they made sure that the building, even though it did not fall into the historical district, they made sure that the architectural design of that building was very complementary into that historical district. So again, I'm going back to the fact that the building looks beautiful, but not in Orangeville. I am very concerned also that the fact that the proposal building height is 2.5 times the building height. I just don't think that a building that high is gonna look really good in that neighborhood. I would say 6 stories at the max. Again, I'm wondering about the above ground parking. I know that the whole thought about the above ground parking is because it's in the floodplain. We could bring the height down if we put them underground, which I know is a concern. Has there ever been any issues of flooding in there? I know Sherbourne Street a little bit further east, there's flooding down there in Sherbourne and Town Line, but I just don't recall any significant flooding in that area. And then I do have one more follow-up question, but that flooding question's to staff.
Through Deputy Mayor McIntosh to Councillor Sherwood. In terms of the flooding, the parking is not located in the basement due to the high groundwater table, not so much the flooding within the area. Okay. So that has been addressed as part of their engineering submissions, and that's why the parking is provided within the podium of the building.
Okay, so Ms. Robbins, through you, Chair McIntosh. Ms. Robbins, I'm wondering, the current buildings that are going to be demolished have commercial tenants. Some of them have been in business here for a significant length of time. Have they been offered have they been offered space in the commercial proposal for relocating their business?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Sherwood, and through you, Deputy Mayor. So yes, to answer your question, the commercial tenants, unfortunately, I do not have an answer for you regarding if they've been offered space in the new commercial area. That is something that I can discuss with Elite Developments and get back to you on, but unfortunately, I do not have an answer for you today. Okay.
You know, that's not the deal breaker or not. I'm sure some of them can relocate, but I just want to make sure that they have been offered that. And again, my whole concern is the height being 2.5 times and not just kind of blending in with our going into our historical downtown. As Councillor Andrews mentioned, Roger Brooks made it very clear that as people are coming into our town off of Highway 10 coming in and heading west, we want to attract them to downtown, and those kind of buildings coming up that way have to draw the people to our downtown. So that's my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Post.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Most of my concerns have actually been articulated extremely well from Ms. Bayham, from Ms. Rowley, and from my fellow councillors. Particularly the one that I was most concerned about was both the aesthetic of the building and the height, and those have been very well articulated. I did want to make a positive comment about the design elements though, and I'm really appreciative of the work that went into putting the 5th floor outdoor amenities into the building. I think that that's a beautiful addition. So as you're going back to the drawing board to look at the aesthetics, you know, that would be one thing that I do really like. I like that component. And thank you, Councillor Sherwood, for asking the questions about the parking, because my question was very similar as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Post. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Ms. Robbins, you talked about sort of a unit mix. Has there been any contemplation about studio units?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Peters, at this time, we've not included studio units in the proposal. When going back and reviewing the design, the project team can consider that to see if that's a product that we can offer. Okay, just again speaking to the affordability piece, and you know there are single people looking for apartments that are affordable in this town, and they're very hard to come by. So to build on that, I guess my comments have been spoken to by you know citizens and council, but just to reiterate, I do think the building height is too much for that area as well. We do have to sort of find a balance between the density piece and the aesthetics piece and the neighborhood feel. So you know I am an advocate for intensification and for the sustainability benefits that come with that, but I think this might be too much in this particular location. The parking count also seems very high for a building that's mostly 1 bedroom. To have 2+ spaces per unit, again, seems high, and maybe that comes with a reduction in area and height because you have several floors dedicated to parking. You know, if I'd be inclined to keep any building height, I'd like to see it terraced back rather than, you know, it's not a straight facade up from Broadway, but it is very close to the street compared to the buildings that are there in terms of their massing and their impact on the streetscape in that regard. So I think all of these have been, you know, expressed by other people as well, but you know, these are my thoughts on the matter, and as proposed, you know, I'm not behind the design as it currently stands.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to go back to the parking and 2 comments. One is through you, Deputy Mayor, to Ms. Robbins. I understand what I think to be podium parking, but I was hoping that you could explain what the podium parking is actually going to be. When you pull different pictures off the internet or look at what you've got, it's different. And my concern overall is when it's open parking like that, it typically allows for vandalism of vehicles and just kind of strange things happening in parking garages and whatnot. So I was curious how that would go. And then the second piece is I'm listening and writing and reading as we go. I've heard 2 different comments about the number of parking. I've got the 255 spaces. I believe I wrote down in your presentation that it was 181 parking spaces for residential. The rest would be for the businesses there. But then it was also referenced that it was 157. And so I was just curious, what is that? And I guess the last thing would be is, I think Councillor Peters and his math skills are right. Like usually I'm the guy saying 1.5 spots, Mr. Ward, what are we doing? And in this one, my math is, it looks like Mr. Ward's been very generous with the parking. It just seems like quite a few spots, and I'm just curious how this works.
Through you, Deputy McIntosh, if I can address that to Councillor Taylor. The total parking count is 253 spaces. There are 157 residential spaces proposed. In addition, there are 24 visitor spaces for the residential uses. Wow. And 72 parking spaces for the commercial. The total requirement on the site is 243 spaces. The applicant is proposing 253, which is 10 spaces in excess of the requirement.
And if I may, Deputy Mayor, would each resident get? Are you listening? Would each resident get more than 1 spot? Is that how that would go? Would they be assigned that, or is it first come, first serve?
Through you, Deputy McIntosh, to Councillor Taylor, that would be up to the developer and how they market their parking spaces. But in terms of the calculation, it's 1.5 spaces per unit with an additional 0.25 visitor.
that's not enough.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Mayor Brown, go ahead. You're muted, sir.
On the parking issue, you know, it seems like progressive municipalities are actually taking parking out of the equation in urban development. And, you know, I think we're sort of injecting ourselves into the, you know, the marketplace here by enforcing parking rules. I mean, if the developer wants to build a building that has one parking spot, it's on them. And, you know, we have our parking bylaws in place, and we will enforce those parking issues. So I don't know. I think we have to be cautious about forcing parking in the urban environment. I mean, they're reducing them all over Southern Ontario. The second item I wanted to mention, and a number of councillors talked about the streetscape. You know, it now is not terribly expensive to do, you know, a flyover style of computer generated graphic. And whether the town commissions this or whether a collaboration of the developers commission it, but I'd like to see what this is going to look like, the entire streetscape. And I think it can be done, and probably fairly reasonably, because of the advancement in computer generated imagery. And I think everybody would like to see what this is going to look like. You know, we've got potential development at Top Technicians, potential development on this property. I'm aware that there's other developers. I know the folks that own Greystones have acquired some additional land around that property. There's no doubt that they're not going to sit on that. There's probably going to be an application brought. Of course, the Wellington and Broadway. Our proposal, perhaps across the road from Town Hall, we're talking about another building there. Be nice to see what that looks like. And again, whether or not Town Council appropriates some money to do some of this, or we get a collaborative effort with the developers to bring something to the public and to council to see what the entry to our town is going to look like. I mean, Roger Brooks really talked about Top Technicians and Leggett's Collision as really a shame that they are the entry marks to our town, and suggested in December 2018 that we need to deal with that. Well, the marketplace is dealing with it. The land values have skyrocketed. It's likely that Leggett's Collision is going to realize that the land they're sitting on is so valuable now that they'll be moving out to the industrial area, which is where they should be. They shouldn't be on Broadway. Again, it's going to be an interesting
building there, you asshole.
Oh, really? Well, yeah. So anyway, I think that was an interesting comment from the public there. Thank you, ma'am. But I think we need to. This is going to be an interesting next 3 to 5 years here in town and we need to make sure that it's done properly and done well. Councillor Peters mentioned the terrace look. This is what I was talking about. We need texture. We need, you know, this idea of just building a box and sticking it somewhere. I'm not in favor of it at all. And if I have any say in it, that building won't be built the way it is. I don't want it built that way. So anyway, that's all I have to say for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Anybody else on council have any comments? Is there anyone from the public would like to comment?
Yes, I would.
Your name and address, please.
Joanne Hutchinson, 67 McMaster Road.
Go ahead.
As a reasonably new person to Orangeville and having visited here in the past for many years, I love the look of Broadway as a smaller town. I think we should limit heights to 4 to 5 stories at most to be able to integrate with the rest of Broadway. There's also would be too much traffic on Broadway with the number of parking spots proposed. I worked in condos and in rental, and I worked in some older condos, and older rentals where there was one spot per unit. Today's people are having at least 2 cars per household, so there won't be enough spots. And on a side note, I really hate to lose Angel's Diner. But I think once we give permission to build more than 4 to 5 stories, then Orangeville will have many buildings because they will use that yes, that company got to build 9, why can't we?
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchins. Ms. Robbins, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. There's just a couple of comments that I was hoping I could address if you don't mind. One being regarding the podium parking. Thank you, Ms. Russell, for touching on the parking numbers. You're right, I did provide the residential parking without the visitor parking included. But regarding the podium parking, it will be fully enclosed. So it is essentially, and I can provide you with the architectural drawing set, Councillor Taylor. It shows kind of a 360 view of the podium parking. It will be fully enclosed. If you can try to picture an underground parking infrastructure just above ground with walls, you know, I don't imagine too many members of the public not using either the residential component or the commercial component within this building, including the podium parking. So I just wanted to make note that it is fully enclosed. And it is essentially a ramp going up in a building as opposed to going down. And then to touch on the parking, there were a few comments just that it is a high rate for urban development. The project team will be going back to look at the parking rate and the height, obviously, and the design, as I mentioned, and perhaps with a reduction in parking, we can accommodate a shorter building. But again, we'll have to evaluate that to see how that works with the building. But yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for your comments, and that we will be taking all of these back and looking at how we can use all these comments to complement one another, essentially.
Thank you, Ms. Robbins. Councillor Taylor, you have another question.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just like to thank Ms. Robbins for your presentation tonight, and certainly the investment that you and your organization would be potentially doing in Orangeville. I think it's important. As a side note, there's something that the mayor said that I didn't want to lose track of, and that is the digital piece that he's referring to of what that stretch of Broadway would be like. I know it'll be a takeaway for town staff, but and maybe this isn't the appropriate time, but I don't know how much money that would cost, but I think it would be money well spent. And I just wanted to offer affirmation of what Mayor Brown had said. I think that makes a lot of sense. And as a visual student, I'd be grateful to have a look. Nothing worse than seeing something after the fact and going, oh, darn, I wish we'd done this. So if we're having all this development, I certainly would be grateful as an elected official to have a better understanding of what the total package could look like. Anyway, just as a thought, and I thank Mayor Brown for the suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there anyone else from the public that has a question? Seeing none, we'll need a motion to receive the information tonight. Councillor Taylor and Councillor Post, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'll now turn it over to Mayor Brown.
Very good. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I guess we just have the final. Just let me pull it up here. Hold on. This is the confirmation of the bylaw for tonight. Let me read it. That the bylaw listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. A bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its closed and council public meeting held on February the 7th, 2022. May I have a motion on that? Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Thank you. And a motion to adjourn, please. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Night
Enjoy the
all.
rest of your evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.